Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners and Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France, of course. You good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful May the 18th, 2020. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, it's been a little moist down here. We've gotten a little bit of rain. I want to say thank you to all the frontline healthcare workers, the nurses, the doctors, and the first responders. Stay safe, and God bless you.
Stay safe, and God bless. I want to say today's show is powered by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate the way that's growing. Big C, everybody's been on the pause, but they're starting to take that pause off of the sports world. Big C, they're trying to get back into sports. I want to make sure that we pay homage to our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones get help. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, even as the country seems to be reopening modestly, Charlton, and recovering from this COVID-19, our veterans are still out there struggling every day. We're still losing some 20 of them a day to suicide here in America, Charlton, and those people don't always have an option to turn to when we think about many veterans that are homeless, and we talk about practicing social distancing and wash your hands. When your home is a sidewalk, they can't do that. Many of them don't have access to electronic devices, Charlton, such as cell phones and computers. It makes it very difficult for them to get in touch. But as private citizens, we should always think about our veterans, because they've given us the opportunity to live the way that we live in America. So we shouldn't turn our backs on them. Any way that you can find to help out a veteran, please don't ever hesitate. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is one that we give out daily during our broadcast. But I know there's much more out there that people can do. And if you see somebody homeless on the street who's asking for help, find out if they're a veteran. And if they are, offer them the number.
800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and they can all get some help. It's all fair and level war, Big C. I know the sports world is busy. We had some fights going on down in Jacksonville. They were getting buck wild in Jacksonville, Big C, and so everybody's looking forward to that. Also had some governors from East Coast to West Coast saying that everything's all right. But I want to open up with something I just found out. They're saying that President Trump, he's taken hydroxychloroquine despite the warnings that maybe he's been exposed. We know that I think there were some people in the White House that got exposed, one of his drivers. He's 73 years old, and based on, this just came out on his last physical in 2018, it showed that he did have heart disease. Many people have something going on, but at the same time, maybe this is the reason they wanted to stop those daily White House press conferences. I just heard it about maybe 10 minutes ago, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, there was a movie that came out some 20 years ago. They did a remake of it last year, and they had this little lion cub on there named Simba. You remember the name of the movie?
I remember. Lion King.
Okay, there you go. All right, that's what he did during his press conference.
Yeah.
And I saw the same press conference.
Yeah.
If you look at the press conference, he said he started taking it a couple of weeks ago, okay?
Yeah.
That's amongst criticism from other people that came out. If you also listen to the words that he said during the press conference today, he said, I could have taken it.
Yeah.
I could take it.
Yeah.
He lied. He told 3 different lies during the press conference.
Yeah.
The first one that came out that he was on the hydroxychloroquine. this only done under medical supervision. That means that you're in the hospital being monitored and studied all day long.
Yeah.
Understand he has a White House position, but he's not being monitored and studied all day long. He's not hooked up to monitoring devices, Charlton. So to tell that lie, that misleading tale to the American public, and now you're going to have people rushing out to take this hydroxychloroquine. And you're going to see people falling over, Charlton. They're going to fall ill from this stuff because of the stupidity that he wants to sit up and lie and lambaste. But he couldn't even keep a straight face. I mean, he's looking all over the place. And if you go back and listen to his words, he said he was taking it, been taking it for a couple of weeks. Then he comes back and said, well, I could be taking it.
Yeah.
And I could take it. He can't, you know, go ahead on to some other subject. I can't talk about this guy.
Well, Dr. Fauci in March said there's no evidence that it works, but it's important that people make sure that whatever you do, talk to your medical doctor, but that's just everybody can read between the lines and do their own information when it comes to that. But I want to make sure I do my part. I also want to just say that I know everybody is itching, no pun intended, to get back to some form of sports, and I know that we will. And I was watching just over the weekend. I watched a couple of fights. There was a big fight down in Jacksonville, Florida, with the MMA. They were fighting, and I mean, I know a lot of the guys at Team Alpha Male in Northern California with Uriah Faber. That's the number one fight club in the United States, as far as I know. One of the top two at least. There's also another one in Denver. But you had some guys, Overeem and also Harris. These guys are 6'4" and 6'5", weigh about 250 to 264 pounds. And, you know, there was a tragedy with Walt Harris and his daughter, but a lot of respect for him. But what I did notice, the first time I saw the UFC without a crowd, I really wasn't that drawn. I thought Cowboy Cerrone got robbed. I saw that in broad daylight, if that makes any sense. At the same time, when I saw Overeem and Harris, it looked like Harris was going to take him out in the first minute, and then Overeem came back and got him done in the second round, Big C. I don't know if you saw the fight, but I would actually say it was exciting to watch big men that were skilled in the octagon, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, no, Charlton, it was one of those events that I missed. You know, being a true sports aficionado, I don't see the excitement of watching a game without the attendance. And when you think about boxing, it's a sport, and even MMA, it's a sport that's driven by the crowd, the enthusiasm of the crowd, reacting to the actions of the fighters within the ring. I mean, there was NASCAR on and there was golfing on this weekend also. NASCAR is a race that when it's on television, the cameramen follow the cars. They don't worry about what's in the stands. They're following the car around it over. I think they're making a left turn for
all the time,
500 miles or something like that.
That's an easy way to follow. Easy road to follow.
The cameraman's all screwed up at that point. But even in the golf match that they had down in Florida, you know, they had the players carrying their own clubs, which I would really like to see that added to the PGA, because I think it would make the PGA much more challenging.
Yeah.
That you do this without caddies. I mean, just like all us layman people when we go out and play golf, we're responsible for our own clubs. So let the players carry their own clubs. That's going to make the game even more competitive as you go along.
Yeah, I think sometimes golf wants to have kind of this snooty mentality to it. They used to call it a gentleman's sport, and you know, gentlemen don't carry their own clubs around. That's off their level war. But when it comes to the racing, I think, you know, Kevin Harvick, you think about it, he's a big name in the world of NASCAR. And to me, it's almost like getting used to a new food or even, you know, new friendship, whatever you have. There's always that warming up period before you really start getting into it. And I think they're just trying. We know that sports is going to come back irrespective of who's on hydroxychloroquine or whatever they're going to be on, whether the people know it or not. But at least for the drivers, they're expressing, and of course they should, because they're getting paid tens of millions of dollars by sponsors, that they actually missed it, and it's giving them something to look forward to. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it is. I mean, and for the pit crew as well as the drivers, Charlton, it's business as usual during a NASCAR Indy type race. When you think about it, they're removed from the fans. There's never any social contact when you're dealing with the drivers and the fans. I mean, that car is sheltered by many feet of separation through chain link fence and concrete barriers from the fans. So it is just a vision sport. I mean, the cars are so noisy. If you've ever been to one of those races, you don't even hear the crowd for the majority, especially in the pit area. when they're down there. So, I mean, the pit crew, they're wearing masks and they're wearing the gloves. I mean, they're never on top of each other regardless. But, you know, as much as you can be, and I don't think that the passengers could live in all that petroleum that they have down there anyway in the pits, Charlton. But it's good to see some life of sports coming back in America.
You know, there's a track down in Southern California called Fontana. There's also one in Northern California called Laguna Seca. I've been to both of those tracks, and to hear the roar of the engines. I remember when I was in high school, I used to take auto shop, Big C, and there were some good old boys that would fix up Camaros and Pontiac GTOs, and they would go out and race them. They learned to be like the guys they saw on TV, even though the guys that did it in high school, they were not doing it street legal. Big C, you're nuts.
Well, I mean, you know, racing is a different breed of cat. I mean, you're sitting in that car for 400 to 500 miles, and you're totally separated from everybody. It's you against the track, and hopefully no one comes and bumps your fender and spins you out on the race. But, you know, it's look at NASCAR coming back. Those, when you think about race driving as a whole, it's one of those sports that can come back in, and you're really not putting a lot of people in peril, and you really don't need the people in the stands.
Yeah, now I want to ask you a question. You can confirm or deny. I saw the movie it was Smokey and the Bandit. It's about some Southern boys doing their thing. Burt Reynolds, the late Burt Reynolds, and that Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. I always wish that Pontiac would bring that back, but I know Pontiac shut down some business too. But that's a great car. What is it about the Southern experience? And maybe it doesn't apply to you, but have you ever fixed up a car, souped it up to give it more horsepower, to make it drive fast? Out here in California, we call that reckless driving. In the South, I think you guys call it a rite of passage. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when I was growing up, Charlton, that was the rite of passage. I mean, in the era, and I was in school long before you, we all had shop classes, and we would modify our cars and just work on our cars. And everybody was always, the history of the automobile is always trying to get more performance out of it.
Yeah.
And the louder that it is, the faster it is, the bigger the tires and all that. You got a state of euphoria from that when I was growing up.
Yeah, I always love the fact that I just wanted to get into that point that happens with what people call a rites of passage. And I always look forward to it. And so I just wanted to see if you good old boys, if it's really real or if it's just something that's, you know, they talk about and that doesn't really come true. Also want to take the time to say, I know we're doing a bit of an abbreviated show today. Also happen to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T UVerse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. Just tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV. Just like McDonald's does it, car dealerships do it, and sports events. Big C sports events will do it too. Watch TV. Work for your real estate. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Also, if looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com and get opportunities in real estate. I want to get in, before I even get into this thing on Magic Johnson that I thought was very, very wonderful. I was just going over some research over the weekend, and I wasn't aware that the NFL and the CFL have played football before. In fact, they played 6 times between 1950 and 1961. And my thinking was, we do it in baseball, we do it in basketball, and we do it in NHL hockey. Why not have football do it, maybe as an exhibition game, especially that the CFL, I believe the season would be starting right around July, and the NFL starts right around August. Why not have that type of a game and bring those teams back just for entertainment? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, when you look at the rules difference between the two leagues, I don't know if you saw the preseason game that was played last year between the Packers
and the Raiders,
up in Winnipeg, Canada. You know, it's too much of a rules difference trying to correlate those two leagues together, Charlton. The NFL players, whose field would you play on?
Yeah.
Would you play on the CFL field, or would you play on the NFL field? Would you use the 3 downs versus the 4 downs? Would you use the 20-second play clock versus the 40-second play clock? I mean, it's too much trying to coordinate all of that. And even since then, they used to have a Can-Am series where the colleges played each other. I think that ended in 1979 or 1980.
Yeah.
Where U.S. college all-stars would play Canadian all-stars, and they would play each half and utilize the rules for both leagues, for the Canadian League and the U.S. College League. But that ended because of the confusion. I mean, football was just becoming much more advanced here in the U.S. and becoming more of a business to think about just putting on an exhibition where you really wasn't making any money out of it, Charles.
Yeah, and they've had players playing in both leagues, North and South, and it's all fair and level war. But it's great seeing we have two great countries that have football played just a little bit. The rules are different, but it's still a physical game no matter what team you're on and what league you play for. I want to pay homage to two things that happened. I did watch a little bit of the Michael Jordan special just on the other night, and I thought, I'd seen it before. It was still a little bit gripping from when I put down my collard. I had a bowl of collard greens, and I had some red wine, Big C, and it really made me feel relaxed. So I put on the thing, and I saw what I'd seen before. But just, for Michael Jordan, there's a lot of things that people talk about. I really wish that they could focus on Michael Jordan, how he became owner of an NBA franchise, as opposed to how he dribbled the ball 20 and 30 years ago. But that's just my opinion, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the show was a tribute to what he meant to the game, and that's what it's about. The ownership is a separate entity. It had nothing to do with his playing days, and this was to take people back more to compare, the player from that era to the player of this era. One of the things, and I haven't had a chance to watch any of it, and I hear a lot of, people going back debating various things about who's the greatest between he and LeBron. The thing that I've always questioned is, why are you always pitting the black athletes against each other about who's the best? I don't see any programs ever being put out there about which white athlete is greater than the other white athlete. It's always black athletes, making blacks be in constant competition against each other, regardless whether it's sport, whether it's the marketing. And I wish they would, come out with other things to talk about that we can be competitive in. In the business world, when you talk about that part about Michael Jordan, just in life, how we advance beyond athletics.
Yeah, that to me is a missing thing. I mean, they've talked about Montana and Brady and, Staubach and Montana. They've talked about some of those things at the same time. I know
they're not going to put together a series like that and sit there and do a poll like they're doing with these others and questioning who got the best shoe sales, who did that. Things that are meaningless overall in life. Show us what they've done to advance African-American society.
That's what I agree, and that's what I'm so proud of Magic Johnson. People can say what they want to say about Magic Johnson after coming out of Michigan State, winning the national championship over Larry Bird, and that was way back in the days when football, basketball, baseball, it was a big deal, but mostly for daytime TV, and when they played this game, it was in the evening, and a lot of the big games are played in the evening now. But Magic Johnson, he's been a national champion in college. He's been a 5-time NBA champion in the NBA. He's managed, once he retired, that number 32 in the Forum and now at the Staples Center, he went on to become a broadcaster, a national broadcaster in the NBA. He's gone on to be a part owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers. I believe he had ownership also with the LA Lakers, or a GM position with the Lakers. But now he's also been a businessman. But this is what I'm more proud of than watching something of Michael Jordan 30 years ago. And they can both coexist. But one thing that would really help a lot of young kids today, in my opinion, and old people too, Magic Johnson says his company will provide $100 million in loans to aid small business. And I think primarily he's going to focus on helping out a lot of minority-owned businesses, because even with that $6.2 trillion stimulus package, the first $2 trillion, I know there's a lot of people that have minority-owned businesses that did not get the money. Like 95% didn't get the money, according to some studies on CNN. So what is it about Magic Johnson? To me, Big C, this is a bigger story that could last generations more than memories of a basketball game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's been other black philanthropists other than Magic Johnson that have stepped up and made these business moves, Charlton, to help out the black community. But this is what I was just mentioning about the Michael Jordan special. As long as you keep young black people thinking that all there is athletic shoes, they won't grow in society. You're not going to see a special on about Magic Johnson, how influential he's been in the business world and even in the black community, because he's not out there selling shoes. He's not making somebody else money in that way, Charlton. So as far as what that means, as far as a mentor and growing, the black community and society, you need more stories about that with Magic Johnson. ESPN could have easily did that same story with Michael Jordan, showed how he was able to accomplish ownership in the Charlotte Bobcats. But that was not the interesting caveat that they wanted. They wanted to just show him as an athlete and limited his life as just an athlete, not a social businessman.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that because we don't have to wait for anyone to do it, but I think it's so important for the loans Equitrust will join. It's called MBE Capital Partners, a lender that specializes in financing minority and women-owned companies. Think about this. Johnson's investment went to fund loans for about 5,000 companies that Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program approved with the help of MBE, according to the report. Let me just ask your thought. And again, it's your opinion. We all have our own opinions. And I'm not knocking any corporation. But when I hear a story like this, it's such a small story, but it can help a lot more than a major shoe company that goes on sale and people line up around the block to buy shoes, as opposed to business owners understanding that there are companies that do look to give loans to minority-owned businesses, Big C. It would be a much bigger story for African Americans. Buy Nike shoes while you're getting a loan. That make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it comes back to that full circle I keep talking about, and I will always talk about, Charles. It comes to mentorship at home. If you don't have the background at home to tell you and teach you what you should be looking at in life and what your expectancies are, then that's what keeps you standing in line feeling that you need a pair of shoes. Not building a future or personal wealth, Charlton, or even family wealth. You stand in line when a new shoe is produced because you figure that's your passage into the world. And if you don't have a pair of these Nike shoes on, a pair of these Jordans, then you're nobody in society, not what your 401k or your checking account looks like.
Yeah, so I'm proud of Magic Johnson. I want to read more about that too. I know he said that they're launching it now, so it's important because we're going to save a lot of small business and minority businesses because he's a minority business owner also. They cannot just walk into the bank and get that loan. And there was a gentleman that paid off some loans in a HBC that was also on CNN. And so really appreciate, I think his name is Robert Smith, that had done that. And he's very brilliant mind, very entrepreneurial. But I do want to just add on what Magic Johnson's doing, the former NBA star investment company, the majority owner of Equitrust, and is valued at an estimated $1 billion according to the website. So that's important. I love, instead of saying, well, why don't they talk about it, Big C? Well, Big C Sports just did, and I want to do more of that when we get into the business world and how people can actually learn to get the funding. You've owned many businesses yourself. Not one business owner uses their own money, whether it's Kroenke trying to get money for the SoFi Center, the stadium in Los Angeles, or the stadium that's built down in Las Vegas for the Raiders. I believe that's almost completed now. They're not using their own money, and I want to see more programs that reach out, especially to African Americans. For the most part, have been denied and turned down, even with good credit. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's just the history of America, Charlton, and that's why when you think about minority living and minority financing, you have to pool your resources together. When you look at other minority groups within America, you look at the Indian culture, you look at the Asian culture, you look at the Hispanic culture, Charlton, they patronize each other. They keep the money within their communities. Black communities used to do that prior to the 60s and 70s, Charlton. They kept their money within their community because that was the only place they could buy. And they could still do those things, but they figure that, they're making someone better in their own community and giving them personal wealth. And so they choose not to patronize their own culture.
Well, that's something that has to change, and we can also be a big part of that change, Big C. I want to just say before we come up on the Big C pause, I know everybody's talking about getting into playing sports again. California Governor Gavin Newsom stated today that pro sports in California will be back in the month of June. I know there's a gentleman that owns a big car dealership. I'm not going to give him a plug right now, but he was saying he'd take his business out of state if they don't open up, etc. But I know at the same time on the East Coast, Gavin Newsom was doing his thing. Also, Governor Andrew Cuomo from New York, they're asking sports to play again, asking teams to play sports again. But give me your thought. I'm a little bit cynical when I hear that. I know there are teams saying, hey, we'll take our team out of this state if you guys don't relax, and you lose a lot more money and opportunity. No one's saying let's open it up for the fans. They're just willing to open it up for the athletes who could take whatever. They may be taking what Donald Trump is taking today, hydroxychloroquine. But I don't know if that makes any sense. The athletes can play, but the fans can't. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, even Texas joined that group today, Charleston, California, Texas, and New York governors saying that they're opening the states for professional sports. But it comes down to the athletes, Charleston. Just because they're opening a state for professional sports does not mean that professional sports will take place. You have to understand these athletes, and this is one of the reasons why you have a tendency to appreciate the NFL more than you do any other league, because you know that the players have to spend at least 3 years in college to be eligible to play. Not like the NBA, where one and done, well, actually 6 months in college, and you go to the pros. Baseball, you're right out of high school, just like hockey. Those guys have educations, and they're concerned about the health aspects of going out and play. We've heard baseball players voice that also. How do you keep us safe? And that's the number one thing with athletes. And I know a lot of athletes are hurting financially, and they want to get out there and play. But you also got to look at the risk factor. How do you keep them safe? And even more so that, you know, everyone talking about the athletes getting out there and play.
Yeah.
When you start thinking about all of these sports, Charleston, from high school to college to professional, a lot of these coaches and managers, Charleston, are elderly.
Yeah.
When you think about coaches from high school on up to professional, you got coaches in their 60s and 70s coaching on those levels. We're talking about the high risk. Not only that, you got to think about guys with pre-existing health conditions. And there's a lot of athletes who have pre-existing health conditions. And you see a lot of these commercials on television of these health conditions, Charlton, that athletes suffer because they're human beings also. How do you protect them in that environment? And then, you know, if you're playing a game with these athletes and you're on the road, how do you get that athlete back if they contract coronavirus, Charlton? Do you fly them? Do you drive them? How would they get back home? And, you know, how are you going to keep the people around them away from being exposed?
That's a very good question, and I know that no one really knows the answer. They're thinking they'll just put somebody on the side, and then they can have somebody come up from the minor leagues or whatever, but I don't know if that's the right solution. I want to take the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout, and when we come back, I want to talk some more about that scenario, because there's also high school kids too. When we come back, we'll talk more about that in just a moment. All right, we're back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. And as we always tell you, just always pay attention to all the platforms that we're on. I will say welcome to the show. You'll hear from Big C Ask the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow us on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you got to have a smart TV, or you'll just be sitting there looking at a blank screen or a still picture, Big C. Also happen to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly, TV on DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. When you reach out to them, let them know Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Sports teams are starting to do it too. You can let TV work for your real estate. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're also looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com. Really looking forward to that. I want to just get on a few things, because it's not just the United States. If you think about Barcelona, Spain, there's a great soccer player by the name of Lionel Messi, and he says that the pause, just like the Big C pause, the pause may help create more interest in soccer. Spain lost 27,000. I mean, they had so many people that have passed on, but they lost 27,000 lives due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Then I don't know what he said, the pause is going to make people want it more. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it does. I mean, you constantly hear the crying for sports every day that you turn on a television or a radio, that you got to get the games being played, that people are, dying, no pun intended, to see the games played. That, it's a bit of Americana. It's that common denominator in society that everybody can identify with. But, you're talking about rushing the games back at terror. I understand the economic plight, and that's what everybody's looking at, and they need to be honest about that. This is about economics.
Yeah.
It's not about just having the games played. Everybody is talking about the amount of money that they're going to lose if the games are not being played, and that's what's bothering everybody, from the broadcasters to the owners and the broadcast companies. It's about the amount of money that's going to be lost.
Well, let me get your thoughts then. I know, and everybody has their own opinion, but when Messi also mentioned another boost could come from more rest, in that Barcelona suffered big losses in key matches in the Champions League, but that's an individual thing. But when it comes to, again, just like we hear of recalls on cars, and they say when your car has a recall, then just take it to the dealership, they'll fix it at no cost. They don't say keep driving it until the wheels fall off and then get a tow truck to bring it in. They say come in and fix it while we're trying to figure it out that we've already had a problem. So, and you mentioned it earlier, when you have a player, whether it's Cuomo or Newsom, the governors, I know they're doing this because they don't want their sports leagues to go down to the states that say, hey, we don't believe in science. Have all your sports teams come down here. We'll take them, Big C. I know that's why they're doing it, at least in part. So what's the person that's going to get sick and then they can't get back on the plane? They can't hang out with the other team. What do they do with them, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, that's a question I asked earlier. What are you going to do with somebody who tests positive for this pandemic? I mean, especially if you're on the road. How do you get them back home? That's the main concern. How do you get them back home? And then, what do you do with them once they test positive? Do you put them in quarantine, and where do you put them in quarantine with? And you got to test everybody on a daily basis that's been in contact with this person. So that's one of the biggest problems. And I know you talked about teams moving logistically.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's feasible, because where do you house these players if you take all these teams down to one state? How do you quarantine against the public, Charlton? Everybody who's going to be dealing with food service, room service, all these other things, housekeeping. You can't quarantine them, so you can't move them around to other states. I mean, some governors were saying that, but logistically, you cannot make that work.
You cannot make it work logistically, but there are times when people don't work on logistics. They work on, I got a big airplane. We're all going to hang out on my airplane, and we're going to fly. We're going to do it. But they're not talking about the public. They're talking about the fans, and that's part of it too. I just want to pay attention to something. From Australia to Europe to Africa and the United States. Think about this. What will happen to women's sports when the World Cup saw about 86,000 fans? In fact, it was over 86,000 fans that were watching the World Cup, and the women did their thing. And, men and women's sports, they're not compensated the same. I know even the U.S. soccer team, they sued, and the judge said, no, you can't sue. But are we seeing that we may have a lot of women that they may lose a generation of female athletes because they're not getting that TV revenue to run around empty stadiums the way men will, Big C? That make any sense to you? Your thoughts?
Well, if you think about it, this past weekend, Charlton, the WNBA was supposed to have started, and yet it went away, and no one paid it any attention.
Nope.
As everyone has been paying attention to all the men's leagues out there. The WNBA was supposed to have started this weekend, and yet we've heard nothing about the WNBA, and yet this season has been put on hold. And so, as you talk about women's sports, they've taken a total back seat, maybe sitting in the trunk compared to men's sports.
Isn't that amazing? We talk about Title IX. I even hear of programs at Division II that may go away. And when things go away, it doesn't mean they will never come back. They can always come back when the funding is there. But as we mentioned on Big C Sports, there's two things you're going to hear on today's show that you may not hear in other shows until later in the week. What's going to happen to women's sports? Our sponsors going to still pay out a lot of money, tens of millions, to watch women run around in empty stadiums the way they've done for men. You just mentioned WNBA. No one's talking about it today, Big C. And I don't want that to happen, but I want to jump into the SEC real quick also, because they have men and women's sports down there, predominantly dominated by the male sports, football, basketball, baseball, and then track and field. The SEC says, Southeastern Conference, that classes will start on time in August. They will have no fall break, and schools will end on Thanksgiving break, right in time to take COVID-19 to the turkey dinner table. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it was inevitable that most of these conferences were going to talk about finding a way to get the athletes back on campus, Charlton, and that's what they're doing in this scenario. If you eliminate all the breaks and you just do continuous class, and you can circumvent the school year and make it shorter. They just need a reason to get the athletes back on campus. Once these athletes are back on campus, then they'll get them into the stadiums. And that's what this is all about. This is all about the bottom line dollar. It's not about the health of the students. It's not about the health of the athletes, because once you get them in, and the thing that no one really wants to pay attention to is the amount of elderly instructors and teachers that they are in this country. So
yeah,
people
that's
spend
true.
a lifetime being educated from kindergarten on up to grad school, Charlton, that we have many educators that are in their late 60s and 70s that are educating everybody. And they're going to be in the environment daily with these students, starting from kindergarten on up.
Yeah.
And no one is talking about protecting them. We look at the coaches that are out there, Charlton, from high school, college, and professional. Look at the amount of elderly coaches that they are in every sport. I mean, most of the gentlemen you see on the sideline are gray-haired or bald, one of the two. And so as you look at that, what about exposing them to this coronavirus pandemic, Charlton? How do you keep them safe? And I know baseball has come out with new rules that today, in their negotiations, talking about there's going to be no gum chewing, no tobacco chewing, no spitting, no high-fiving, no nothing, no standing, no sunflower seeds.
Yeah.
They're talking about taking everything out of baseball just to get people out there. But if baseball is played and they're played without fans, the owners will lose $640,000 a game. That's how much they will lose. $640,000 a game if the game is played without fans. You think they're not going to let butts in those seats?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's just a matter of time. So as we talked about, I want to go a little bit deeper. We talk about the health and safety plans. What are the health and safety plans for the high schools? We talked about proteins. You got you're a grown man or grown woman. If you want to take that risk, go ahead and take that risk. College players, you should have a little bit more common sense, but sometimes people are impressionable. But high school players, are we going to get a high school players, or even Pop Warner and Little League players to say, hey, the grown-ups are doing it, so you guys can do it too? I know they're going to use the pro leagues as a guinea pig. They talked about that before. And so what's the protocol for a high school kid that goes out of town and gets ill? They're going to leave that kid out of town, or how are they going to deal with that situation, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, my concern is baseball is talked about, no physical touching in baseball, and if a baseball is touched by more than two people, they throw that ball out of the game and they use another ball. How do you play a football game or a basketball game without touching, without passing perspiration back and forth between the athletes, without breathing on each other? How do you conduct those sports without that physical contact happening? Because everybody knows that both of them are physical contact sports.
Yeah.
And so you can't play the game. You can't practice social distancing. And coaches get right up in players' face. They're not going to think that they're 6 feet away from a player when they're pissed off at them and want to yell at them.
Yeah.
They'll get right up in that face mask, spit flying out of the coach's mouth and everything else.
Right.
So as we look at this, there's no protection plan in place for coaches and players from youth all the way up to professional.
Well, it just came out today that President of the United States is taking hydroxychloroquine, whether he's going to do it for whatever he thinks he may have, or if he's trying to boost the stock.
When you go to bed, what are you doing? What position you go to?
I laid on my back, Big C.
you lie down, don't you?
Yeah.
All right, he's lying down.
Yeah, we all understand. I think I understand part of what that means, Big C. So when you talk about coaches that get in somebody's face and they yelling and screaming and grabbing by the face mask, the great Lou Holtz used to do that when he was roaming the sidelines for Notre Dame. Jimmy Johnson did that a lot too when he coached for the Cowboys and the University of Miami. So will coronavirus threaten the sidelines of all the coaches, high school sports, college sports, and pro sports? The answer is there's a reason they're having all of this protocol that goes right in the face of medical science to say, yeah, we know it's dangerous, but we got to come out sometime. Even bears hibernate, Big C, so they can get bigger and stronger. They don't come out of hibernation just because somebody wants to see a bear run around the field, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's the major concern. And like I said, we still don't see the broadcast companies out there putting all of their personnel in the studio together. They still feel that it's unsafe to put their personnel together. And I didn't think that their personnel would be sweating in the studio or, bumping up against each other in the studio, but they still don't feel that it's safe enough to bring their personnel together. But they're dying for all the sports teams, literally, to bring their personnel together and have them start touching each other.
Well, I beg your pardon. When I watched the UFC fight down in Jacksonville, I know Dana White, he's not big on science, but he got so much money he couldn't care less about science. But I saw in the pre-fight, they had the announcers were all about a foot away from each other. They didn't have a mask on, and they were talking as if they were on a date. They were so close to each other, Big C. But when it came to the trainers and the crew in the corner, they all had a mask on so they wouldn't have their fighters breathing on them. And, of course, we know that fighters, they're sacrificial. They already had someone test positive for COVID-19. It's a situation where as people start testing positive, as almost, I think, 90,000 fatalities nearly in the United States that they reported, if someone gets ill, they're not going to let it be known because it would kill what they've already cooked up anyway, Big C. But what they've had, give me your thoughts on the UFC. They had some of the announcers in the pre-fight that were talking about a foot away from each other without a mask, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they test everybody going into the MMA event. Everybody inside the arena has to be tested prior to the event. And we know that when you're looking at the MMA, it's not normal. I mean, it's not normal for human beings just to want to elbow and kick and slug each other to death
anyway,
in a ring. So know nobody's normal in that scenario. But, you got the official in the ring. He has to be dealing with all those passages that are flying around regardless of what he's doing with a glove on, and a mask on, Charlton. But this is Dana White, challenging the science out there, saying that it's safe. And even though you said they've had someone test positive prior to a fight, they haven't had anyone test positive yet that has come out of a fight.
Yeah, and if they do, they won't tell you anyway. I want to just get on this thought real quick with the NFL owners. They are set to have a virtual meeting tomorrow. Isn't it interesting? No one's mentioning WNBA was supposed to tip off today as far as practicing. No one's talking about the women, but Big C Sports will. But how about reopening training facilities and also to discuss the new potential minority hiring rules? What are the potential minority hiring rules, Big C? Is they got to wear a mask so you can't see what color they are, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, here's the owners saying that they're going to have a virtual meeting about opening up training sites.
Yeah.
Virtual. That they're not willing to get together. They don't want to have physical contact with each other, and all of them are old guys anyway.
Yep.
But they don't want to put themselves in harm's way. and this new rule, Charlton, about, minority hiring, this all that is a new form of affirmative action.
Yeah.
And if they implement that rule, Charlton, you're going to see women get hired in the front office. You're not going to see black coaches get hired on the sideline. They will circumvent that just like affirmative action was. All of a sudden, you'll see a lot of females, and I'm not being critical of females. I'm just being critical of the game and the structure that the game is. If that rule was to be implemented, it was to be hiring minority black coaches and black general managers. They'll go around the system, Charlton, and put females in the front office, and that's affirmative action. This is just a different form of it.
I still don't know the answer because a lot of people just won't say it. But
well, if you want to hire a black coach, Charlton, you're going to hire the black coach.
Yeah.
This business is owned by a bunch of older white guys, all except for one. And they're comfortable in hiring the people that look like him. NFL, all professional sports is corporate America. And I don't know why people take it out of that context.
Yeah.
It's corporate America. These are billionaires. Everybody in corporate America is billionaires. And they hire the people that look like them because they're comfortable, that they can socialize with. They're from the same type of environment, Charlton, and they're not comfortable hiring black coaches. It's not that they always have not been qualified. They're just not comfortable. We saw that last year in Dallas when McCarthy stayed at Jerry Jones' house.
Yeah.
He sent Marvin Lewis back to the hotel.
Yeah. Well, we know that racism exists, but I want to have a little forward thinking just for a moment. What advice, if you had the chance to sit down and talk to this group of 31 white men about if you were to give your thoughts on the Rooney Rule, what would Big C say? In all sincerity, what would you say or suggest that would be a way in going forward? In the coaches' dunks, the same way we have on the athletic field, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I want to understand what's your phobia against black people of power. As long as they're in a total subordinate position as a player, that you can control every aspect of their lives every day as a player, you're okay with that. But when you have a black man that's in the position of making decisions, critical decisions that's going to, determine the plight of your organization, why are you uncomfortable with that? Why are you uncomfortable sitting down, having to talk with this person on a daily, weekly basis, understanding where he is, and he may be smarter than you? I think that's the biggest problem that the guys have, Charlton, that when they sit down with a black coach, and here it is, he can articulate and explain the game to them completely, then they have a problem with that. If you look at the NFL, how the hiring's going, they're hiring a lot more younger coaches. They want young boys that they control, that they can treat like their son, that they can talk to them like that. And I guarantee you in the meeting they say son. And they don't want to be in a position where they have to say coach and sir to a black man. That bothers a lot of rich white guys.
Well, I love the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. There's been many organizations that gave the opportunity, but oftentimes when one is gone, then you don't get it to come back for some time. But it's great to have the conversation, because going forward, we have to have the dialogue, or it will never happen. I think in the Bible it says, you have not because you ask not. Well, I'm asking for that dialogue. I want to jump into a couple things with college, Big C. 3 years after becoming Boston College, I think coming to Boston College as their youngest Power 5 athletic director and launching an ambitious strategic program, Martin Drummond is leaving the school. He's left the school already to become the athletic director at UCLA in Westwood. He's going to inherit a UCLA athletic department that reported about $19 million deficit for the 2019 fiscal season. Give me your thoughts on how he's going to make a difference, Big C. Your thoughts.
Well, how he's going to make a difference, Charlton, when he joined Boston College 3 years ago as the youngest athletic director in a Power 5 conference, he made history. Not only was he the youngest, but he was an African-American who did that, Charlton. He's the youngest athletic director as an African-American, period, to become in a Power 5 conference. Now he's moving to UCLA, Charlton, a program that has struggled and trying to get back on their feet. And you talked about the $19 million deficit. Compare that to Alabama football, where Alabama football made $90 million by itself, not just as an athletic department. So the West Coast has struggled. They're trying to take some Big East philosophy, Charlton, and bring it out west and change the plight of that program.
Yeah, they've had their run of success over the years. And, I mean, things that they've changed a little bit, especially down in West, but we'll see what happens. I also want to stick it to college, but a little bit, I guess, I mean, are we tired of hearing these stories? But we know if we don't talk about it, it's tacitly consenting. Kentucky Wildcats, they fired all cheerleading coaches amid a scandal. The University of Kentucky, they fired all 4 of its varsity cheerleading coaches, followed a 3-month investigation into the hazing and alcohol use and public nudity of various outlets and reporting, Big C. They reported that Kentucky's won 3 of the last 4 national cheerleading competitions, but they put their women, or those young girls, young women, under a lot of stress they shouldn't have had to be under. And, of course, we always advocate for women, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this has become more and more of a common thing as through social media. More of these things get out. We've seen the scandals that have occurred in the Big Ten at Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, and now we're seeing this at Kentucky. This is something that has gone on for decades, Charlton, in schools, but because everybody now has a cellular device in their hand that they can record with, things are getting out and more. And something that shouldn't have been going on over these years, and I'm proud of the University of Kentucky for making this move to show that they do respect the rights of other human beings, Charlton, and that the coaches need to be the adult in the room, and this shouldn't be gotten away with.
It's a shame that it happens so much in the world of college and professional sports, where there's Olympic women doing Olympic competition. We've had a lot of things happen that I really wish that we would just put more of a light on. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon and Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV or you'll be looking at a still picture. Really want to say happy to have the affiliation with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. Just reach out to them and tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it, and let TV work for your real estate. Sports are doing it. It's coming back soon, Big C. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Also, if you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. As we get ready to close out this beautiful Monday in Northern California, and also somewhere down there in the South, Big C, you good up, boys. I guess you have the land of the free and the home of the brave. I want to just touch on one story that came out about your friend Rory McIlroy. He's considered the number one ranked golfer in the world. And he said this before POTUS mentioned that he's taking hydroxychloroquine. You know, that's supposed to help treat you if you have COVID-19, even if you don't tell the public about it. But McIlroy, he's not African-American. He's not even American. But that good old boy, he criticized POTUS. He said he would not be playing golf again with President Trump, and doubts that he would ever be invited again to Mar-a-Lago after the COVID-19 pandemic. He doesn't think that POTUS handled it well. How's a foreigner going to criticize our president? Maybe he reads, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he also has some investments over in Ireland, but I mean, anybody who has looked at how this pandemic has been handled and how the course has changed, it, when you think of the president, that he acts like it doesn't even exist anymore. He has gone on to throw deflectors and Teflon out there, Charlton, bringing up other subjects, and he's gotten away from the coronavirus that is still affecting and afflicting many Americans. The president even made the statement that if we didn't test, we wouldn't have so many cases.
Wow.
So he is trying to cut back testing in many ways. The deaths are still going to occur. He'll say you just can't attribute it to corona.
Yeah, it's crazy, crazy world. I want to go around the world. Ethiopian runners raise money to help fight COVID-19. They're also running in empty stadiums, but it's a worldwide issue, and everybody's trying to deal with it. In Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, you have people that are out there running tennis. Deba is his name, and also Kanisa Blakely are running on their own around Olympic stadiums just to get some money raised for COVID-19. So we're touching all over the universe, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, it's a great thing that people having human decency around the world, thinking about the plight of others, and you wish that all governments put forth that much consideration as we think about everyday citizens going out and putting on fundraisers and trying to raise funds to combat this battle, Charlton. But as we look at it as a whole, without the government bailing us out, we can have all the small fundraisers we want around the world and have private companies saying, hey, I'm going to donate. But it's the government that has to write the check.
They have to write the check. And with the California governor and also New York governors saying they want to open up the states for sports, I wonder how Hollywood will deal with it. Big C, we have sports teams willing to do it, but how's Hollywood dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic? I mean, really, would you ever do a love scene in a movie now? Will we ever see a love scene again? You can spread pathogens by breathing on people, let alone, lip locking with people. I remember shows like The Bachelor. Who's going to want to kiss 50 men or 50 women now on The Bachelor, Big C? One Life to Live, one of my favorite soap operas from when I was a young boy, are Tyler Perry's Sisters, the BET series. Seriously, how's Hollywood going to deal with having the governor saying it's okay for the athletes to go out and share sweat, but they won't do it in Hollywood? Or will they, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Hollywood has survived every pandemic that has been in this country, Charlton, whether you talk about SARS, whether you talk about AIDS, whether you talk about herpes. Hollywood has always coped with everything that is out there. So if there's any group that will cope, Hollywood always has found a way.
They've always found a way, and I just hope that everybody, wash your hands, stay safe, no matter what the governors say. You got to take care of your families. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I guess it's time to buckle up and get ready for live sports in America coming in as early as July, because it's going to be played and not at the worrying about the health risk that's going to come to the individuals that involved. But I also want to say thank you once again to our frontline healthcare workers, our doctors, our nurses, our first responders, and also another shout out to our veterans. Be healthy and be safe.
Be healthy, be safe, and you can do it too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to deal with that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports Show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.